Hey guys, so I send anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 emails per day for myself and my agency clients. I do AI lead generation and I book anywhere from 5 to 10 calls every single week on a predictable basis. I've not left a single week unoccupied in the calendar for, months on end so far. And I just wanted to go over quickly what makes cold outbound predictable. There's seven different things that I've made up, understood over the few months that I've been doing this for myself and my clients. I've understood like seven different things that we need to always take care of and always monitor in some form or another. Either you monitor it yourself or you employ some kind of AI automation to do that. But you need to always take care of these seven things in order for your cold outbound, your cold email infrastructure to be completely stable and predictable. And if you are sending anywhere, let's say you're sending anywhere from 5,000 emails per day, that means you are sending anywhere from 20 into, if you're sending on every work day, so that's like 20 work days on average every month. So that's around 20 into 5,000, which is about 100,000 emails per month. If you want to send 100,000 emails per month predictably, you want to make sure that your infrastructure. So this is the first thing, right? I'm just jumping right in, right? Not to waste time or anything. So the first thing is essentially you want to understand the infrastructure that you need to build and something that you need to maintain throughout the 30 to 60 to 90-day period that you run sprints from, right? So if you've watched my other videos, you'll see that I often talk about 60-day sprints and 90-day sprints, right? And essentially when you send high amount of emails, so you're sending anywhere from 10 to 30 emails per inbox, and that could be a Microsoft inbox or a Google inbox, it doesn't matter. You're sending 10 to 30 emails per inbox. And Microsoft and Google inboxes are different from Azure inboxes, if you know what I mean. If you've been in the game long enough, you understand this distinction, right? So you're sending around 10 to 30 emails per inbox, and you have a little bit of bounce rate. Your Google and Microsoft are becoming day by day better at understanding what is spam and marking certain words as a spamming email and so on. It's not your fault. It's just the way things are. Infrastructure always expires. It doesn't matter how good you think your warm up reputation is. If it's I try to keep my warm up reputations around like 98 to 100%, but it doesn't matter. It will get burned sometime or another. It will get burned in 60 days or 90 days or I don't know 4 months, but it will do so. So what you need to do have what you need to do is like have a reserve, excuse me, a reserve infrastructure in place. So for example, if you're sending 5,000 emails per day, then you need to have an infrastructure in reserve that is also capable of sending anywhere from 2.5k to 5k emails per day. And this will be your reserve mailboxes that you do not touch um, every 30 days or every 60 days. So once um, you alternate between your main infrastructure and you rotate a few domains and you rotate a few inboxes per client or for yourself, and make sure that if you send in the next 60 days through one part of the infrastructure, you keep that in warm up and do not use that infrastructure for the next 60 days, and instead use the other reserved part of the infrastructure, and so on and so forth, right? You keep alternating between them every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days. But you do that so that you don't end up burning your domains and burning your inboxes. So that's point number one. This is like something that everybody misses. I did that too. I missed this the point of this as well. And when emails start, when my reply rates started dropping, I came to understand that okay, reserve infrastructure at least, so at least 50% reserve infrastructure is essential. So your reserve should be capable of sending at least half of your daily sending volume at normal. So if you're sending 5k emails per day for now, your reserve infra should be able to send about 2.5K per day at least, because you know it's extremely unlikely that your entire infra will be burned together. I mean, if you can afford it, you can reserve 100% infrastructure. But if you want to be slightly more cost effective, then you can reserve at least 50% as a reserve, right? So just buy more mailboxes, more domains to make sure that you have 50% reserve at all times, and you alternate between them between months. The second thing is essentially, whenever you start a campaign with a different offer, different set of lead lists, different email variations, different personalization, different CTAs, all that. You test different things all the time, right? The thing is that before you start a campaign, you need to do two things. You need to actually send test emails to yourself, and what this does is essentially, um, you know, you check that certain variables are appearing correctly, your sending account name is appearing correctly, you know, and the main thing that you check by sending an email to yourself is essentially if they're landing in your primary inbox or not. If it's landing in spam, that you know that this is not working properly and maybe your infra is burned. So you need to immediately take those inboxes off and just deploy your reserve infrastructure. That's why I talked about reserve infrastructure first. So sending test emails to yourself is like the number one thing that you should always do before you start any campaign. And in Smart Lead, it's extremely easy to do. I can quickly show you how it works. So if I go to, for example, okay, so if I go to, for example, draft email that I have. So if you go into the final review stage, you'll see that you have a test. Yeah, okay, you can't see this because my giant head is in the. So you have this send a test email option right here. You can use that to actually, send a test email to yourself. That's how you do it, right? So that's second. That's the second thing. The third thing is run inbox placement tests, at least once per campaign launch, or you can do it once every two campaign launches and so on, right? um, the there's pros and cons to this step. The pro is essentially that you know if you're running this on a domain and a few inboxes, it will what this will do is essentially in Smart Lead, for example, it will take a few of your domains and few of your inboxes and it will test against its Smart Lead's own infrastructure and see if what percent of emails land in primary and what percent land in spam. So anything above 90% is great. The cons is that even if it's below 90%, you cannot say for sure that your domains or emails are burned, right? The problem here is that sometimes these sequencers um own email domains and mailboxes are not exactly accurate of real world examples. So it doesn't actually depict reality properly. So take this as a grain, like with a small grain of salt, and do not completely rely on inbox placement tests. But this is still necessary to do once in a while, at least once in a while, or if you can do it per campaign. If you're running 20,000 leads in a single campaign, then you should definitely do inbox placement test. If you're only running 2,000 leads in a campaign, then maybe you could skip this, but do not skip this part. Sending test emails to yourself. You can probably skip inbox placement if you think your infrastructure is okay for now and it's like a small leads list and you have been getting good reply rates anyway, right? If your reply rates actually drop and you have seen that happening, then it's necessary to take all kinds of precautions, right? And do all kinds of tests, as many as you can. And the fourth thing is essentially test different copy. So the thing is, you know, there are, and if you've seen, once again, if you've seen my other videos, you'll see that I talk about two different kinds of copy, email copy. One is the short and punchy variation. The second is long and personalized variation. The thing with short and punchy is that it's universally acceptable. If you have a good offer, if you have a good offer and you have some experience in the industry, you can craft sub 50 word emails with an extremely good reply rate, extremely good positive reply rate, and you'll book lots of calls. The problem with the first and the long and personalized variation is essentially, if your email is 50 words and above, then it's a longer email. And if you do not know how to write emails, if you are slightly inexperienced with copywriting, if you have a good offer but you do not have much experience in constructing, you know essentially being a little bit more descriptive in your emails, then it's better to actually be just err on the side of caution essentially, and be like short and punchy in your emails rather than dawdling enough and making it long and personalized. Because personalization is good, but you need to be able to understand what you're doing. Like, you need to know what you're doing essentially. Like, you need to have some experience with writing good copy in order for it to be successful. So in some cases, and this is completely up to the test, so some industry verticals, the short and punchy works, and in some other verticals, long and personalized works. For example, you know for law firms, long and personalized is pretty, is kind of universally acceptable, because lawyers obviously are used to reading long and personalized and somewhat formal uh, emails, and they will respond better to a slightly more context. So it depends on the industry vertical and obviously your experience. So you have to test different copy, and you cannot rely on a single copy and a single email variation. The next thing is essentially, and obviously you can jump in between these two to see what scales better with volume. If your reply rates drop when you're using short and punchy, maybe try long and personalized instead for that vertical, or with that offer. So there's like a few different variables that you have to keep tweaking to understand what's working better, right? And the next thing is essentially, email variants are better than spintax. So if you have any kind of experience with cold outbound, you'll know that email variants are essentially, so you have email one, which is your initial cold email, and then you'll have email, for under email one, you'll have um, email 1A and email 1B and so on. You can have any number of email variations, and same, and then you'll have email 2, which you'll send about, I don't know, 3 days later, and so on, right? This is how you construct an email sequence. um, Doing this kind of thing, having email variations within a campaign is better than just relying on a single variation and using some kind of spin tax. Spin tax is essentially, you writing a copy like this. So uh, can I share more info? So for example, I'm just taking an example of a CTA that can use spin tax. And this is the or symbol. Essentially, it will randomly either do this one, or can I share more info, or is this worth sharing more? So if you see here, once you write a spin tax like this in an email, what we'll do is, email sequences like smart lead or instantly or email bison or +5, they are intelligent enough to randomize which CTA is being sent here. So for example, for, I don't know, if you're running 5,000 emails a day, for about 2.5 thousand emails, you'll be sending this CTA, and for 2.5K, other 2.5K, you'll be sending this email, and so on. This is how spin tax works. I am saying that this, doing completely different variations, and variations meaning maybe your first line, maybe your personalization is different, maybe your subject line is different, slightly different, right? Maybe your CTA is different. Maybe in one email variation you ask for, yeah, you ask whether it's worth sharing more info. In the other CTA, you say Can we book a call, right? Can I show you in a 10-minute call, something like that. So you can make sure that you know, and the thing is that when you're running different email variations, you're, you know, in a form of it's a form of test, what's working, what's going to work, and what to scale later on, right? So you have to make sure that you track all these metrics, but in order to make sure that your deliverability is better, you should always try to tweak at least one metric at a time, not all of them, right? And obviously you can still use spintax, but email variations are still, you know, the better than, if you don't use spintax it's okay, but do use different email variations, right? Email 1A, 1B, 1C, and so on. I try to do at least 2 to 4 variations. 2 to 4 variations is like the sweet spot. You always get a winner when you run at least 2 to 4 variations. So yeah, that's great. This was the fifth one, right? The sixth part is essentially um, warm up phases. So, you know, industry wise, and you'll see more videos on this on YouTube as well. People say 14-day warm up is you know, mandatory and so on. I agree. Okay. Oh my God. Mandatory. Okay. My God, I can't spell. What I do is instead, you know, I try to do at least a 21-day warm up. It's like the thing with deliverability is that, you know, when you're buying new domains, your Google and Microsoft and all Azure and all of these providers, they already know that your domain is new. So there's a higher risk when you're starting out anyway. On top of that, if you start sending on the 15th day, you know, if you start sending on the 15th day, there's still a higher risk than, you know, you sending on 22nd day. If you can, you know, afford it, if you can afford it, you can wait until the 30th day as well. So you can do a 30-day warm up instead of, you know, 2 weeks of warm up, you can do 4 weeks of warm up instead. And this essentially, you know, lowers way, this is like a 50% lower chance of, more than 50% lower chance of, you know, of being treated as spam. So if you can warm up lower, if you can afford to warm up lower, and that's why, you know, having some form of reserved infrastructure is always good. So like I said, you know, if you can have at least 50% of reserve to start with, it's always a good thing. That's when you do that, you'll be able to actually, you know, have a longer warm up as well, because you're not touching that infrastructure for 30, 60 days, right? Uh, the final thing that I wanted to talk about is what was the final thing? Um, okay, I think I'm forgetting, but I think that was it. Um, yeah, that's it. It's 6 things. Yeah, I think I covered everything. This is 6 things that you always need to understand in order to do a cold outbound predictably and, you know, scale properly, so that you don't end up destroying your infrastructure, or, you know, you, so that you don't have to pause sending in the middle of the month because you just burn through your 75% of your mailboxes, and, you know, your reply rates are at 0.1% or so on. So yeah, take care of these let me update the 6 things and you're good to go. Thank you so much for watching. If you want us, you know, me and my agency to come into your business and give you leads on a predictable basis, anywhere from 5 to 10 calls per week, then just book a call from the first link in the description. We'll talk about your offer, your business, and exactly what your goals are, and see if you can help, right? You won't have to worry about any of this stuff that I've talked about. Obviously, you can do it on your own, but if you want to just show up to calls, or just, you know, make your sales team show up to calls, or handle leads that we produce on a predictable basis, just book a call. We'll handle everything for you, and you'll just, you know, be closing clients. That's it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow in the next video. Bye.